Have you ever been outside and seen a rainbow, and when you saw it, it brought your mind to the promise God made to Noah, that he would never flood the earth again? Me and my family do this a lot. You know, when there's a rainbow outside and somebody sees it, they'll run inside and scream, "Guys, there's a rainbow!" Everybody has to go out and see it. And at some point, somebody in our family will say, that reminds us God will never destroy the earth with a flood again. Because God has a way of making a promise and giving us something, something visually to remind us of that. We see that in Genesis 9, where he says, "Never again will there be a flood to destroy the earth. I have set my rainbow in the clouds, and it will be the sign of the covenant between me and the earth." So God does this in scripture. He'll make a covenant or a promise and then give us something to look at to remind us of that, because we need reminding sometimes. Well, what's really interesting is that God has done something very similar with the moon. And it's really been exciting to me. Now, when I look up at the moon, I think of this promise. So let me share with you what that promise is, and then how that relates to the moon. So God made a promise to David. It's called the Davidic covenant, if you want to use a fancy word, Davidic. But the covenant to David, and it's in 2 Samuel 7. And God makes some specific promises to David. And here's just a few of them. I'll just do like an overview. That after David has lived and died, God would actually continue his line, and he would raise up a descendant from David's own body. And this descendant would be the one God would use to establish his kingdom. This descendant would rule over Israel and the rest of the world. He also promised that this descendant would build a house for God, a beautiful house, and also that God would establish his throne forever. And then we see that God would be a father to this descendant. This descendant would be God's son, or the Son of God. And then we see that the house, kingdom, and throne of this descendant would be established forever. And then this descendant would be the ultimate king over Israel and the rest of the world. And we see the words forever being used in this covenant quite a bit. But basically you see, okay, there's going to be a descendant of David, a son of David, and he will be the king forever. He's going to rule on the throne forever. He's going to rule over Israel forever. He's going to establish the kingdom forever. We see that. And what's really interesting is if you fast forward a little bit to Psalm 89, you see in this psalm the covenant to David being repeated. But with it, you start to see kind of a picture, a sign that's helpful to remember it. It says, "Once and for all, I have sworn by my holiness, and I will not lie to David, that his line will continue forever, and his throne endure before me like the sun. It will be established forever like the moon, the faithful witness in the sky." So that's definitely talking about the promise that God made to David, but you see it being connected to the sun and the moon as a picture of how it will last forever. It's not only there though, you see this theme of the sun and the moon being a picture of this covenant even in Psalm 72, describing this descendant of David and what his kingdom would be like. It says, "They shall fear you as long as the sun and moon endure throughout all generations. He shall come down like rain upon the grass before mowing, like showers that water the earth. In his days the righteous shall flourish, and abundance of peace until the moon is no more." So it says that they will fear him as long as the sun and moon endure throughout all generations. It's this picture of this promise God made to David will last forever, just like the sun and moon. So when you look at the sun and the moon, you can remember the promise God made to David. Isn't that really cool? I remember when I first read this, that I would go out, on walks at night and see the moon, and I'd be like, wow, that reminds me of this promise. God's going to have a descendant who will set up the kingdom of David. He'll rule on David's throne forever over Israel, over the rest of the world, and there's going to be a kingdom that lasts forever. And that's what I thought of when I look at the moon. And I want to encourage you guys to go read that for yourself, 2 Samuel 7, and remember that every time you look up at the moon. And that's actually what led me to write the song on my first music album, Man in White, called Every Time I Look Up to the Moon. I'll throw in a little video at the end of that song. But I want to encourage you guys, man, the kingdom is coming. One day Jesus, Yeshua, will come down, sit on the throne of David, and set up a kingdom here on earth that will last forever throughout all generations. The moon reminds us of that. Guys, we're one day closer to the incredible kingdom of the Messiah, where we're going to experience glory with God. It's going to be so amazing. Let's endure, live for Jesus, bear fruit for him. We are one day closer. God bless you guys.
Every time I look up to the moon, I see the faithful promise made by you. How you raise us up a king to rule forever in victory. Every time I look up to the moon, it's a promise that will never die, like the faithful witness in the sky. Every time I look up to the moon, I see the faithful promise made by you. How he raises up a king to rule forever in victory. Every time I look up to the moon, it's a promise that will never die, like the faithful witness in the sky. Son of God, a Messiah, the perfect Lamb who was slain. Son of David, may your throne and your kingdom forever reign. Son of God, a Messiah, the perfect Lamb who was slain. Son of David, may your throne